Hello, welcome to Intro to Biochemistry Notes, Part 3. Today we are talking about the macromolecules of life. So if you see the three macromolecules of life, notice that I wrote macro in big letters. So that means that the word macro means large molecules. And so these are the large molecules of life. They're large in that some of them are really big physically, and they're large in the fact that they play a large role in making up pieces of who we are. And so the three that we're talking about are carbohydrates, lipids, which are AKA also known as fats, and proteins. And so these words may sound like things that you've already heard of. They may sound like things that you've seen on the back of a food container, because it is the stuff that you are made of. So if you were to eat nothing but cheeseburgers for a whole year, then you would be made of nothing but cheeseburgers. You would be made of little pieces of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen that we find in cheeseburgers. So you are what you eat, literally. The stuff that you touch, the stuff that you are made of, comes from the stuff that you eat, which is really cool to think about. And so the three macromolecules are made up of smaller molecules. So big things are made up of smaller things. And so here's the chain. Remember that the chain, or here's a chain of small molecules. Remember that this chain is a polymer. The prefix poly, let's underline that. The prefix poly means many, and the prefix mono means single. And so we see that this is our monomer, our single molecule. And if we look at this chain of molecules, we can see that it is a polymer. It is made up of a whole bunch of these monomers. And so there are polymers and monomers of all three of those macromolecules that we were talking about earlier. So let's learn about that. So carbohydrates, I'm sure you guys have heard of carbohydrates. They're found in foods like breads, potatoes, and pasta. They're delicious. We find them in bagels. We eat lots of carbohydrates. They're in almost everything. And so remember that the function of carbohydrates, when we eat them, their main goal for us, what they do for us, is that they give us short-term energy and long-term energy. They will, if you eat a candy bar, it's made of lots of sugar, and sugar is a carbohydrate. And so if you eat a candy bar, that's short-term energy. You go up, 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 your energy goes up, 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 and then it crashes really quick because that's short-term energy. But if you eat pastas or breads, then you're going to have more longer-term energy. And we call those complex carbohydrates. So remember that the monomer of carbohydrates are simple sugars. So when you eat a candy bar, that's quick energy. And when you have complex carbohydrates, well, it takes longer to break down those bonds, and so they're going to give you longer-lasting energy. And so our examples of a monomer, this is glucose. In our example of a polymer, we have two of them, starch and fiber. And we will talk a lot more about carbohydrates in the near future, so let's just move on to our introduction. Here, proteins are found in foods like meats, cheese, and fish. So it is found in meat, essentially, but it's found in lots of food, but primarily we're going to talk about meat. And so this is because if you look at how you are composed, you are made a majority of protein. You are composed of lots and lots of protein. So if you eat steak, well, a cow is also made up of a lot of protein. And so therefore, when you eat steak or when you eat cow, you're getting lots of protein. And proteins are really cool. They are very diverse in their functions, meaning they do lots of different things. One thing that they do is they provide structure to our body. So we are made of proteins. Lots of proteins on the inside. They also perform little jobs. They perform jobs like little molecular robots in the body, which is really cool to think about. And they also provide channels, or like doors, for molecules to move into a cell and to move out of a cell. And so these are the functions of proteins. And so the monomer and polymer of a protein I'm sure you've heard of the word amino acids. So if you have a whole string of amino acids, you have a polymer of a protein, which is, this is easy to remember, a protein. So the monomer of a protein is an amino acid, and the polymer of a protein is a protein. And so here you can see our chain of amino acids, and what happens is they get folded into a special shape that allows it to perform a function. So here it would be a folded up strand of amino acids, what we would call a protein, and it would do a job in the body. It would act like a little robot in the body, or it'll be a channel for molecules to get into or out of the cell. Whatever it is, it's going to be a long chain of amino acids folded up. So those are 2 out of our 3. Let's talk about our third macromolecule of life. Lipids. Lipids, also known as fats, are things like cheese, butter, and oil. It's the stuff that when you eat chips and then you have the grease on your hands and you wipe the grease on your pants and then your pants have a grease stain, those are lipids. And so the function of lipids are to store long-term energy. So when we eat too many calories, or when we eat too much food, when we eat too much energy, we store that energy as fat. That's for later. And also, they're a big part of the cell membrane. You guys should remember the cell membrane from drawing it when we drew the cheek cells. So those are the lipids. And let's look at the monomer and polymer of lipids. The monomer of a lipid is a fatty acid, which sounds pretty funny. And so here, this is our fatty acid. It's a long chain of carbons and hydrogens. So these black circles here are carbons. And so the polymer, and this should make a lot of sense, is a triglyceride. There are 3 fatty acids in a triglyceride. And so when we are remembering monomer, think fatty acid, and polymer, 3 fatty acids or triglycerides. Let's talk about digestion. So when we eat the 3 macromolecules of life, they are big, and what we do is we break them down into smaller pieces. The goal of digestion is to break down your food. So it enters our mouth, we chew it. So we chew it here, it travels down our esophagus. And then here in our stomach, it's going to interact with gastric acid, which is going to break it down even smaller. And then here in the small intestines, this is our small intestines. This is where these very small pieces are going to be absorbed into the bloodstream. So here we have made the pieces so small, like single molecules of glucose, or just sodium, or just single elements. We've made them very, very small. So small that they can travel through the lining of your small intestines. And where are they going? So where are all these little food pieces going? So imagine that the small intestines are here. And do you see all these blood vessels? Well, this is where those nutrients, those elements that we digested and made very, very small, pass into these blood vessels and then into your body. So once it goes into your bloodstream, your blood goes to every single cell in your body and delivers nutrients. So your bloodstream is sort of like the nutrient bus, and it's going to every single cell, and it's delivering the nutrients that you got from your small intestines. And so your small intestines are very, very important because they absorb your food and deliver it to your blood, and your blood delivers all of those nutrients to your body. And so if we look back at the big picture again here, we ate these large molecules and broke them down into very small pieces. And along the way, in order to break them down into very small pieces, we had to break the bonds of these molecules. And so we released the energy. The energy was absorbed by us, and this fuels us to go, and we can feel the heat in our forehead, and we can move our hand, and that comes from breaking those bonds. We also broke those nutrients down very, very, very small so that they could be delivered to the blood, and then from the blood, it could be delivered to every single cell in your body. And from there, it's going to make up your cells, and your cells make up you. I hope that this makes lots of sense, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll see you guys in class.